Wonderful. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us at our next business boot camp slash new member orientation. We're very happy that you are all here. This is our first business boot camp of 2021, so we are excited. And we have a great presentation for you all as well. We have Nate Dominguez, who's with BNI Arizona, who's going to be presenting the power of networking. So very, very timely for everyone to listen in on this. Before we go ahead and get started, we'll go ahead and briefly just go over some housekeeping rules. Just make sure you keep your mics muted out of courtesy of our speaker for today and for all of our guests also on the call. And make sure you include any questions in the chat box. So if you have any questions, any comments, make sure you drop those in there. We'll be allowing some time towards the end of the presentation today to have a little mini Q&A session. So stay tuned for that. If you could tell, the session is being recorded, so if you missed any second of it, you'll go ahead and receive that after the webinar this morning. And just make sure to enter in your contact information in the chat box as well. Just a nice little way of networking now that everyone is working from home and going virtual. So that is the wrap of the housekeeping rules. I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and I'll go ahead and introduce Nate to start sharing his screen and kick it off from here. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here today, first and foremost. And selfishly, thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity, I think, for all of us to kick off the new year, to talk about networking and to do some networking. So she stole some of my thunder, but I'm going to ask for a few additional requests. I am not going to have the chat bar open while I speak today, just because I get distracted easily, to be honest. But I will have your faces on my screen. And one way I've been, excuse me, networking better online is to put faces, names, and company names together. So I'm sure most of you are entrenched in Zoom like we all are now. But if you'll all do me a favor, it's really quick and easy. If you scroll over your own, I want you to rename yourself within Zoom. I think this is a good habit to be in anytime you're networking online. But it selfishly will also help me out throughout the presentation. If you scroll over your own video feed, your picture or your video there, a little blue box should appear in the top right-hand corner that's got 3 white dots in it. If you click on that, it gives you the option to rename yourself. And I want you to keep your name there. I see Juan's name and Nicole and Eric. But if you'll do me a favor and put a hyphen and then your business name. Since we're not in the same room and we can't exchange business cards, I still would like to be able to associate what you all do with who you are. And that's selfishly so that when we get the chance to meet in person, I can connect the dots. But I also think for your sake, as you're networking and listening and participating here with fellow chamber members, I know we have some, I'm a chamber member, by the way, but I know we have some visitors and guests here today as well. Who knows what could come out of today's presentation and who you might meet, even though it is just online. Then I heard the request to also put your contact information in the chat bar. Again, since we don't have the opportunity to exchange business cards, right now in Zoom world and digital world, it doesn't mean we can't still promote ourselves. I call it shameless self-promotion. And what you'll learn about me throughout this presentation, I'm a networker and everything I do is surrounded with how can we network better? How can we make our efforts more efficient and more effective? And so by throwing your contact information in the chat bar, I will review that at the end of the meeting. I'll actually download it so that I have that. And you'll have my contact information by the time this presentation is over. So that's my addition to housekeeping. So my name is Nate Dominguez, just to give you a few quick bullet points for an intro. Like I said, I am a proud member of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the only chamber I choose to participate in and belong to right now. But my chamber experience goes back many years. I was a founding member of a chamber in the Valley 15, 16 years ago. I've sat on boards for a few different chambers over the years. And I admire and love chambers. Some people think that what I do, my company's called BNI. I'm not going to talk about that today, but we do networking. I think chambers are really great and kind of the founding fathers of networking. Some people think that we compete with each other. Instead, I love to support chambers. I love to endorse chambers. And I am so grateful and proud to not just be a member of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber, but Eric McIntosh, who I trust many of you know. If you don't know Eric, you need to know Eric. So get his contact information out of the chat bar and reach out to him. He and I met at a networking meeting two years ago or so. Imagine that. And we've developed a great friendship and a great relationship. And it's really thanks to his vision and his team over there at the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce that we have forged what we now call a strategic alliance. And I know there's a lot of great chambers out there throughout the Valley and throughout Arizona, but I mean it from the bottom of my heart when I say I don't think there's a better chamber out there, and hence the Arizona Hispanic Chamber being the only one that we have a partnership and a mutually beneficial relationship with. So thank you, Eric. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, everybody. Christina from the chamber. I consider this a really great opportunity for me and for all of us today as we kick off 2021 together for the first boot camp of the year. I'm really honored and grateful for this opportunity to be with you today. So the title of my presentation is The Power of Networking. And what I think is a key tool in any of our networking efforts is leveraging your referral foundation. So what I'm going to share with you today is not anything that is rocket science related. You might want to take some basic notes, like jot down some bullet point notes. I know it's being recorded, so you can revisit it later. But really, I just want you to sit back and listen and digest and absorb what I have to share. And I can't give credit to everybody who deserves it for everything I've learned about networking throughout my career. I've done this full time for 16 years now. I grew up in the Valley of the Sun, went to college up at NAU, got a marketing degree, thinking they would teach me something about networking. They really didn't, for the record, but I'm still a proud lumberjack. And it's a bunch of mentors and teachers and coaches of mine who have helped me come up with and develop and share everything I'm sharing with you today. And I practice what I preach. There's not one thing that I'm going to share with you all today about networking or how to network or where to network that I haven't already done myself with some trial and error and that I've seen other successful people do. So that is me in a nutshell. And so let's go ahead and dive in. We would be remiss, I think, if we didn't together put 2020 behind us. Now, although 2020 was a rough year, my business and my family were affected. And unfortunately, we did have a client back in May who passed away as a result of COVID. We have 1,700 clients, but every single one of them are equally as important. And to have lost a BNI member and a family member due to something that none of us, that I didn't even know existed a year ago today, is tragic. And I don't want to make light of that at all. I think that what we all were dealt in 2020 was a hand of cards that we did not expect. And it was a lot of challenges that came with it. But what I want to focus on today is the positives. I personally think that some very positive unintended consequences are available and we can all capitalize on because of what happened in 2020. I am a big goal setter. I like to dream big, and we set some of the biggest goals, and I had one of the biggest dreams I've ever had a year ago today, and not all of that came to fruition because of, what I call the 100-year pandemic. But I'm not letting that stop me going into 2021. I really didn't let that stop me throughout the tail end of 2020, and I really want to encourage all of you to lean into this challenge, to accept whatever the new normal or the new reality is for you and your business and your family and your clients and your staff. And heck, the fact that we're all meeting here on Zoom. Eric and Christina and Elizabeth and Byron and some familiar faces who are here with us today, which is a great surprise for me to see some old connections from years ago joining this meeting today. We're not in person. I would prefer that we were. Those people all know about me. I am a person. I thrive off of energy. I like to do belly to belly, face to face, eyeball to eyeball networking with business cards in hand and shaking hands. Obviously, we can't do that right now, but I think a positive unintended consequence of everything that's happened is we can utilize technology more and better than any of us ever planned on. I have learned more about Zoom and PowerPoint and just working with my laptop in general in the last 9 months than I had learned in 9 years prior to that. And I've got 3 young kids at home that are 12, 10, and 6 who are all in the same boat. They're attending school today online, and they're being forced to learn more about technology than they would have otherwise. And I think that that can be a real positive for those of us that lean into it versus those that are resisting it. I'm seeing a lot of people who are pushing back and resisting, and even though I don't love this as much as I would love being in a room with all of you and feeling your energy, I'm still going to lean into it and do the best I can. So that's all I've got to say about 2021. Or 2020. I want to spend the rest of our time together really talking about 2021 and the future. So this gentleman on stage here is one of the mentors I referred to earlier. This is a guy by the name of Ivan Misner. He's the father of modern networking, recently dubbed by Forbes magazine. He was the visionary who had the vision to start BNI, Business Network International, 36 years ago. This picture I actually took myself. This was in Warsaw, Poland in November of 2019. I was at an international networking convention in Warsaw, Poland that had representatives from more than 75 different countries. 4,000 people were in this room that I was in here. About 2/3 of which did not speak a word of English, by the way. Disclaimer. Yes, my last name is Dominguez. Yes, I am a proud member of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, but I do not speak Spanish. I'm working on it. It is a big, hairy, audacious goal of mine to become as fluent as Eric and many of you are. But for the sake of today's presentation, I'm going to speak English. And at this presentation I was at, Ivan Misner was speaking in English. However, 2/3 of the room had headsets on because it was being translated in dozens of different languages. And the theme of that entire convention, this was November of 2019, was to dream big. And this guy named Ivan stood up on stage and he gave a really captivating presentation. You can see everybody was taking pictures and videos, myself included, about dreaming big in 2020, which I think most of us and all of us did for the first couple of months. And, then March came around. But now here we are in 2021. And my theory is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And he never said in his presentation, dream big for only 2020. He kind of just said, let's all dream big. The sky is truly the limit. I believe firmly that in business and in sales and in our community, and when it comes to our own goals and the things we inspire to do and the people that we are motivated to be, the sky is the limit. So why not just dream big in 2020? Let's all dream big in 2021, and let's dream big for the rest of our lives. And if you get any knowledge or nuggets out of today's presentation, hopefully it will just help you in networking. And the thing I love about networking is it helps us fulfill on our dreams. When I'm out networking, yes, it's somewhat selfishly for myself, and that's what I do for a living. But really, truly, what I love about networking more than anything else is it gives me an opportunity to help other people fulfill on their dreams. When I met Eric, he didn't have any kids yet. And now, his dream of growing a family, I've gotten to watch that and be a tiny part of that. And I can't wait to see the dreams that his family continues to have and cultivates for years to come. So it does look a little different. My new version of a visual for dreaming big doesn't quite look like a guy on stage in front of 4,000 people in a ballroom in Poland. Instead, I found this image online. It's this little goldfish who, at the end of the day is just a little goldfish. He probably came out of an aquarium in a PetSmart or a Walmart and somebody bought him for 99 cents. But when I see him swimming around here with his little shark fin on, to me, this goldfish is dreaming big, and he is not going to let anyone mess with him or her or take away his dreams. And I think we all have that opportunity as well. So speaking of opportunity, I'm not an economist. I've already told you multiple times, I'm a networker. It's what I do for a living. Some people ask me often, do you network with Oracle or Cisco? Another disclaimer, I do not network well with technology. I network with people, and that's what I do, and that's what gets me out of bed. So I'm not an economist. I'm certainly not an expert, but I network. And here's what I've been observing. These are just a few quick observations of mine. In studying business people throughout the pandemic, starting back in March and as recently as last week, I'm seeing two different types of people out there right now. In my organization, I also sit on the board for my kids' Little League here in North Phoenix. And, we're planning a new Little League season, having no idea what that's going to look like. I'm seeing two different types of people out there right now. Unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of people who are in a wait and hold mode. And they've been that way since like April or May. I'm hearing people say all the time, friends of mine even, people who I care about tremendously, who own businesses, who I've known most of my lives, yet I'm seeing them post things on Facebook like, I'm waiting until the pandemic is over to start growing my business again. Or I need to hire someone, but I'm waiting to see what happens with the economy. Or, heck, back in October, the theme was, I'm waiting for this election to be over to know what's next. And here we are, where we are with that. So that's the first group of people. And it bothers me a little bit. It's kind of tragic in one regard, but I have a hard enough time worrying about myself and my family and my employees and my team to overly worry about everybody. I'm seeing it out there, I'm observing it, but I'm certainly not participating in it. The second type of people that I'm seeing out there, I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir, or you wouldn't be attending this boot camp today. You wouldn't already be a member of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. If you're not, by the way, what are you waiting for? Join the chamber already. The people that I'm surrounding myself with and that are getting me out of bed every day and that I'm excited to be networking with, like Eric and Elizabeth and Christina and all of you who I look forward to meeting here today, are the ones who see our current set of circumstances as a golden opportunity in a few regards. And I'll touch on all of these throughout the presentation, but in one regard, I think we have a major opportunity right now when it comes to efficiency. I don't know about you all, but I have been able to find many ways that I never thought possible and that I never thought I would need to be more efficient in building relationships, in networking with other people, in passing referrals. One example is me being here with you all today and none of us having to drive across town or from Northern Arizona down to the Valley to network with each other or to learn or to share. I think efficiency has gotten an uptick for those of us that are leaning into 2021 versus those that are waiting for something else to happen or something to change. I think effectiveness has also really been exploited as an opportunity right now. I'm able to be more effective right now by meeting online, by attending a lot of Zooms. Heck, I've been attending Zooms around the country and around the world in the last couple of months that I would have never been able to do had 2020 not happened. So yes, it's no fun. My kids' Little League season getting canceled last year was not in my dreams. Seeing a BNI member of ours pass away from a disease, an illness that none of us knew about a year ago, not a good thing. But if we set some of that stuff aside, acknowledge it, but set it aside and lean into the opportunities that we have in front of us in business and community and in life, I think we will all be better off. So keep that as a theme throughout the next 45 minutes or so. Now, I want to reference a few different people throughout this presentation, some of whom I bet many of you have heard of or at least familiar with. Someone who I have learned a ton from in my life is this guy on the screen. His name is Harvey Mackay. I've only met him once. We shook hands after he spoke at an event. I guarantee he doesn't remember it. There were thousands of people there. It was at the Arizona Biltmore Hotel 7 or 8 years ago. So I've only met this man once. He doesn't even know I exist, but I have studied him. And he, in my opinion, is one of the greatest networkers of all time. I don't have time to tell you his whole story, but I want to give you a Reader's Digest version. He's in his 80s now. He lives up in Minnesota, but he has a home here as well that he comes to as what most of us would call a snowbird during the winter to get out of the snow, and he loves to play golf. He's a multi-millionaire. Not only has he made and built companies worth millions of dollars of business, but he is also a philanthropist. He has donated millions and millions of dollars during his lifetime to charities, to nonprofits. He's a big fan of his alma mater, the University of Minnesota, where I think the last tally I heard is he's donated more than $10 million of his own money to the University of Minnesota. So his theory is the more money I make, the more I give back to the university that taught me what I know, the more that gives back to the future. So Harvey is amazing. He's written some best-selling books, some of which are 20 years old now, but they are just as effective, in my opinion, today as they ever were. If you're writing any notes down, or if you like me and you like to read, one of my favorite books of all time, Harvey wrote this in the late 80s. In Barnes & Noble and on Amazon, it's classified as a sales book, but in my opinion, it's all about networking. It's called Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. It's a quick and short read. It's not a real long book or anything, but it's chapters and chapters of stories and networking tips, many of which Harvey used to build up his wealth and to build up his company. It's called Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. I reread that book at least once a year or so, just as a refresher. And so I've probably read it 15 times by now. I also have it on download so I can listen to it when I'm working on my yard and stuff. And every single time I reread that book or listen to it, I learn something new. I pick out a new nugget, something that I use I practice, I try out, and then I get to share with business people like yourselves. Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. Great book. You can get a used copy online for $8 or $9 nowadays. So Harvey made his money in the envelope business. Now think about this for a second as I tell you about him. Think about when the last time was that you bought envelopes, okay? Harvey bought a tiny print company in the mid 1960s up in Minnesota, had just graduated from college, didn't have any money, didn't know what he wanted to be when he grew up, but he knew he was an entrepreneur. So he had saved up a little bit of money, he borrowed some money from some friends and family members, and he bought a print shop in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And he decided he was going to be a printer for a living. And along the way, what he realized into the 60s as he was building this business, so we're talking 50 years plus years ago, was that envelopes were big business, and the envelopes would continue to be big business. Now, in my opinion, I haven't bought, in my personal observation, envelopes aren't as big a business to me as Harvey thought years ago they would be. I haven't bought a box of envelopes in years. My wife and I, mail some holiday cards and send in a few checks for bills, but by and large, we don't use a lot of envelopes this day and age. But Harvey has built a company that he is still actively involved with today that is still based in the state of Minnesota, that's annual revenue has exceeded $100 million a year, several years running, with their primary niche being envelopes. Think about that for a second. Building a company practically from scratch that nowadays sells $100 million worth of envelopes per year. When most of us, if you're like me, don't buy a lot of envelopes. But you know who does? The credit card industry. Harvey's biggest clients are the credit card companies. His company's biggest clients are the credit card companies that send us all those offers in our mailboxes, like Capital One and Visa and American Express. Harvey started when credit cards weren't even out when he started building his business. I think credit cards really started coming out in the 70s and got popular in the 80s. And now most of us will check our mailboxes today and there'll be 2 or 3 credit card offers in there. It's a valuable thing for credit card companies to send out these advertisements and applications knowing they'll get a few back and then they'll make money on the interest of us using credit cards. So Harvey started networking 20, 30, 40 years ago with the companies and the decision makers at credit cards. As a result, a lot of his clientele are credit card companies. So his company, who they insist hires and employs Americans here in the US, they manufacture the envelopes up in Minnesota, millions of them at a time. They ship them down to Capital One. Capital One puts their stuff in them, puts our address on the front, and out they go. So just think about that. If this guy can build a company through networking that sells over $100 million a year worth of envelopes, in my opinion, any of us can do anything we ever want with our businesses, with our companies, with our clientele. A few quotes of Harvey's, now that I've told you a story a little bit, that really stand out to me. He says, "You don't have to know everything as long as you know the people who know the things you don't." I'm going to talk about leverage in a few minutes. And to me, leverage is a big part of networking. It's a big part of business. We all have limited capacity. We all have the same amount of time in the day. And so the more that we can leverage relationships and referrals and resources, the more results that will come out of that. And that's kind of going to be one of my themes for today. Another quote of Harvey's that I really enjoy, this actually comes out of that book, Swim with the Sharks. So he said this 30 years ago. "If I had to name the single characteristic shared by all the truly successful individuals, I'd say it's the ability to create and nurture a network of contacts." Now, Harvey is very well connected. If you do some research on him, he's personal friends with Oprah. He's been in the White House during several different administrations. He knows Bill Gates and Warren Buffett personally, like really successful guy. And he studied really successful people. This was the entire presentation I saw him give 7 years ago, was kind of his assessment of all the billionaires that he's friends with or had studied. And he said, if he had to name the single characteristic that all the truly successful people that he knows and has met share, it's the ability to create and nurture a network of contacts. He's done that to build one of the largest envelope producing companies here in the US. So to me, that presents right there an opportunity for all of us. Harvey says we've got to find people who know information we don't. Here's another adage that I've come up with. Actually, a mentor of mine, a guy by the name of George, helped me form this over the years. There's audience participation. I would love to see you in person, but since I can't, just raise your hand for me. Raise your hand for me if you remember ever being told as a kid, or maybe in high school, or as you started your career, somebody said to you, it's not what you know, it's who you know. How many of us heard that somewhere along the way in our careers and our lives going back to school? I remember hearing it over and over again growing up. It's not what you know, it's who you know. I agree with that. And I've shared that in presentations for years, but I now like to take that to the next level. I think it's not just what we know, it's not just who we know, but it's also who the people we know know. Think about that for a second. It's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who the people you know know. That to me is networking, right? Entrepreneur.com is a website I like to visit often on the internet. It's actually my homepage on my laptop. They're another organization that don't even know I exist, but I promote them quite a bit, and their website is the homepage on my laptop. It's entrepreneur.com. It was originally affiliated with Entrepreneur Magazine, which is still in print, but not very widely used. Instead, they've put most of their efforts on entrepreneur.com. Several reasons why I love entrepreneur.com. It's totally free. They don't send you a bunch of spam and emails that you don't want. And it's an international organization. So you go to entrepreneur.com on any given day. It's kind of like a Google, but just for business. There's articles and blogs and podcasts. There's a search bar. They do surveys all the time. I think entrepreneur.com is a great resource. I recommend you all check it out. And just read an article per week from entrepreneur.com. You've got nothing to lose. It's free. They do surveys all the time. And a survey that I've seen them replay like once a year for several years has always determined about the same result. And they say, based on their international impact, that the average business person knows about 250 other business people. Average. So if we rule out our retired grandparents, our kids, our cats, our dogs, our neighbors that we don't know who are school teachers or stay-at-home parents, the average business person knows about 250 other business people, which means I have limited capacity. When I'm in Costco pushing my cart down the aisle and I see somebody that I recognize and we wave to each other, but I don't know their name and they might not know mine, then I wouldn't even count that as one of my 250. Like, I mean, 250 people that I know by name and who know me by name. That to me is a relationship. So if on average we each know about 250 people, then think about it again. It's not what we know, it's not who we know, it's who the people we know. So by Eric and myself really developing a strong relationship over the last couple of years, him representing the chamber, me representing my company, it's not just me knowing him, but I now have access to the 250 people he knows, like an amazing introduction to Christina with the chamber years ago that helped percolate our relationship now. Me introducing him to people like Greg Hyder and Ed Drummond and a lot of relationships who are now chamber members as well. So it's not what we know, it's not who we know, it's who the people we know. Think about that, please, throughout this entire presentation. One more quote, then I'll get to kind of my leverage pitch. This one comes from a guy named Zig Ziglar, who's another best-selling author. Zig and Harvey have known each other for years and go way back. And what Zig Ziglar's known for is saying that any of us can have everything we want in life if we just help enough other people get what they want in life. Again, that's why I network. First and foremost is to help other people, because I know based on the law of attraction and giver's gain and what goes around comes around, that it will eventually help me and my family. So yes, we're in the Zoom world. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today, though, in my opinion, applies to both. Any tip or trick I give you today, in my opinion, can be used networking online at a chamber boot camp, or if and when, and I hope it's soon, we can all attend a mixer at a restaurant or a community center or a business complex again. This stuff can be used there as well. So I got to start with a few definitions. I was not an English major in school. My wife would confirm that for you. She's kind of my proofreader. If you see any typos in this presentation, let me know. Then I'll let her know. I use dictionary.com a lot. So if you haven't noticed, I like resources. I figure if I can find resources on the internet, like entrepreneur.com or dictionary.com, then I don't have to reinvent anything. So anytime I'm curious about a word or a meaning of a word or how to use the English language, I will go straight to dictionary.com. So I want to start today by sharing with you all the definition for the word leverage. Now, I've heard about leverage throughout my life and career, but I didn't know until just a few years ago that leverage is one of the few words in the English language that actually can be both a noun and a verb. There are not a ton of words that fit this bill. According to dictionary.com, the noun definition of the word leverage is the power or ability to act or to influence people, events, decisions, etc. The verb, the action form of using the word leverage, is to use a quality or advantage to obtain a desired effect or result. Now, leverage not only can be a noun and a verb, it also has a mathematical equation as well. For you math buffs out there, I'm sure you knew this already. In mathematical world, leverage is plain and simply the impact produced divided by the time invested. So going back to everything I said earlier, if I'm correct that a lot of people, my friends, some family members of mine, are in hold and wait mode right now because of 2020 and what we've been dealt, in my opinion, that gives us all a chance to really crank up the dial on how we're leveraging. To crank up the dial to not just fill our pipeline so full that we don't know what to do with it and hire more people, but to not just take a little step over our competition, but to make a gigantic leap over our competition right now. Now, I don't really even believe in that word competition. You won't find it in my PowerPoint anywhere. I like to use the word collaboration a lot more than competition. But the reality is we all have competition out there. We all have other companies or other salespeople who are vying for the same clients, the same end users, the same dollars that we are. And so if we can take this opportunity right now, the time that we've been dealt, and crank up that dial on how we are leveraging our abilities, our time, our network, and our skills, then I think we can leave a trail behind us that nobody will ever catch up. Keep that in mind throughout the presentation, leverage. So networking is all about referrals. There's a bunch of different definitions for the word referral out there. I'm biased in this case. Our organization, the company I work with, has our own definition for what we call a referral. This is not in Webster's Dictionary or dictionary.com, but you can feel free to write it down or take a picture if you want to use this in your context. I like to think that a real referral, not a cold call, not a lead, but an actual referral is the opportunity to do business with someone who is in the market to buy your product or service. It's not a guaranteed sale, but instead it's an open door to discuss your business. To me, that's a referral. I've gotten tons of referrals from Eric McIntosh since we got to know each other. I've been able to send referrals his way, and it just keeps on building. It's opportunities, not guarantees, but opportunities to do business with somebody that's in the market or, to buy our product or service. That guy, Ivan, who I showed you a picture of earlier, he says, referrals are very powerful. When I refer you, I give away a little bit of my reputation. That is a form of leverage in and of itself. We'll talk more about that too. All right, let's talk about foundation. Remember I said today I want to talk to you about networking, but really my subtitle, if you will, is leveraging your referral foundation. So we've got to define what a foundation is. This comes from dictionary.com. It's got 3 different definitions. I just want to hone in on the top one there. It's a noun, according to dictionary.com. The primary first definition for the word foundation is the basis or groundwork of anything. So most of us hear the word foundation and we think of a building, like the structure that you're in right now, your home office, your physical office. If you're coming to us from a Starbucks or wherever it is, you've got a foundation, right? Underneath your feet. Most of us, if you look down, you can't even see the actual foundation. I'm looking down at carpet here, but beneath the carpet that my chair is on, there is feet and feet of foundation. It could be concrete, rebar, plumbing, piping, electrical wire, the infrastructure that was put down first and foremost in order to hold up the walls and the roof that's over my head. Now, whether you realize it or not, I'm sure you do, but just a reminder, when every single one of us entered the building that we were in right this second, we are trusting our lives with the building that we're in. I'm in my home office here. So I've got a roof above my head. It's a single story home. And up above my head, there's tons and tons of weight. There's an air conditioning unit. There's piping. There's, drywall. There's insulation, all that stuff. I am trusting that for at least the amount of time that I'm in my home right now, until I step outside later this afternoon, that roof above my head is going to stay there. Because if it didn't and it came crashing down on me, I would get hurt if I were even lucky enough to live. So physically, I can look around and see the walls of this room I'm in. I can see the roof above my head. But the reality is none of that matters. That's not really what I'm trusting my life with, in my opinion. And I'm not a contractor. So for those of you that are, realize I'm a layman here. But I think the most important part of the building that I'm in right now, that I'm trusting mine and my family's lives with, is the foundation below my feet that I can't even see because it's covered up by carpet. Okay, keep that in mind as we talk about people. Now, at the bottom of the screen there's a few pictures of some foundations of buildings. Important to have a strong foundation in any building you're in, but I think also in your business and in your network. So here's just 4 quick examples, found them all on Google, of buildings that I assume have really great foundations. I've been in 2 of these 4 buildings. So real quickly, in the top left-hand corner there, that red brick building, according to Google, that is the oldest, longest standing house in the United States of America. It was built up in Massachusetts, where it still is today, in the early 1700s. The building, that house is actually older than our country is. And it's built of red bricks. You can see it's 2 stories, maybe with a little loft above it. It's beautiful in my opinion to be so many 100 years old. Yet I would tell you, and I'm sure the people that built it, let alone if somebody lives in it today, would say it was built on a strong foundation, or it would not be the longest standing home in the United States of America. In the top right-hand corner is the Empire State Building in Manhattan. At the time, it was really state of the art. It was the biggest skyscraper built at the time. Obviously, it's been, they built bigger buildings since then. I have been fortunate enough to be in the Empire State Building as well as on the top there on vacation years ago. It's stunning for how old it is. And it is still standing just as strong today as it was on the day that it was built as the tallest skyscraper in our country, thanks to the foundation that the builders put underneath it when they started. In the bottom right-hand corner, that's a government building in Philadelphia that I understand was also built in the early 1700s as our country was forming, yet it is still standing today, and it serves the government up in Philadelphia to this day. Pretty good looking government building in my opinion. And one of my personal favorites is in the bottom left-hand corner there. Anybody recognize that building? Show of hands if you recognize that building or you've ever been in it. Let me just scroll. I don't see you all at once here. No hands yet? I bet at least one of you have been in that building. You just don't remember. So that is supposedly the oldest bar built in the state of Arizona. It's about an hour and a half or 2 hours north of the Valley of the Sun. It's in a little tiny mountain community called Crown King that you actually have to do a little 4-wheel driving to get to. It's on the side of a hill. They call it a saloon. I call it a bar. And they've got walls on the inside that state it. And according to Google, it is the first bar ever built in the state of Arizona. And it was built in the late 1800s before our state even became a state. I didn't take that picture. I stole that one from Google as well, but I have been inside that building. I've been out front of it. At some point, I'm going to update this PowerPoint and put a picture with my family in front of it even, because we went four-wheeling a few years ago with another family and wound up in Crown King and needed a drink. And so we stopped by at this saloon, and it's old. It's definitely old. You can tell by looking at the front of it. It's old inside, but it's still standing to this day, the oldest saloon in the state of Arizona, not because they put up really good walls or a good ceiling. It all started with the foundation when they started building that building. And you can't tell from this picture, but Crown King is literally on the side of the mountain. It's a tiny town. I think there's like 20 homes up there total. They get major storms. They get both monsoons and winter storms. It's kind of like pine trees meets high desert. Yet that building is still standing today, in my opinion, thanks to the foundation that was put underneath it over 100 years ago. So I know you're sitting there wondering, why on earth did they bring Nate here today to talk to us about real estate and construction and foundation? Well, what does this all have to do with networking and building your business by referral? In my opinion, it has everything to do with networking, the power of networking, maximizing your membership here in the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, where in my opinion, the sky is the limit. It's my favorite and the best chamber in the state, in my opinion. So why not maximize that? It starts with your foundation, because if not, you might end up with something looking like this. This is a few more pictures I found online of homes and buildings that, in my opinion, probably were not built on a very good foundation when they were first put together. No matter how strong the walls of the roof were, they're not standing anymore. I certainly wouldn't want to put my family or my friends or my clients into any of these buildings, because who knows how much longer they're going to last. I don't know. I'm not an architect or a home inspector, but I'm pretty sure the foundations beneath these buildings were not very good in the first place, and that's why they look like this today. So back to networking and building your business by referral. If you're taking no other notes today, I recommend everybody here write down at least 4 words. That's it, 4 words. If you got a pen and paper, if you've got your phone handy, type this in a text message and send it to yourself. I think this can be the most valuable nugget that every one of you can leave here with today. These are what I call my 4 R's of networking. They all start with the same letter and they relate to everything I've talked about today. But they happen in chronological order. So the main reason why I've tied this presentation into the whole home and building analogy is because building a strong building has to happen in chronological order. You can't put up the walls and the roof and then build the foundation. My father's a home builder. He's built thousands of homes throughout his life. He would be the first, second, and third to say that won't work. If you build the house first and then put the foundation underneath it, you got to start with the foundation. So this is how I tie it all together. I think there are just 4 words that really guide and dictate all of our networking efforts, and they happen in chronological order. To me, everything starts with a relationship. Relationships are what makes the world go round, in my opinion, not just in business, but in schools and in government and in churches and in nonprofit organizations. You know, our country wouldn't exist if it weren't for relationships that were formed in the early days. Arizona may have never become a state for that saloon to even be recognized in, had it not been for some relationships that were started first and foremost. People are what makes the world go round. As much as I love technology, and I'm diving in head first right now, I'm pretty sure that every computer could disappear tomorrow and mankind would still exist. I'm pretty sure that if every human disappeared tomorrow and there was just a bunch of technology left, nothing would matter and Earth would become a desolate place. So everything starts and ends with a relationship. I could go off on a really long tangent that I don't have time for right now, but here's what I'll tell you. I've observed for years, and especially lately, a lot of people who think they can build a business through networking or by getting and giving referrals, that think they can skip over the relationship step. And I don't see that working for anybody. I'll mention that again in a second. Once we've got a relationship formed, I don't get credit for finding Eric, and I don't think he gets credit for finding me. It was a loan officer at VIP Mortgage by the name of Rachel Drummond who posted one thing on Facebook. I have a relationship with Rachel. We've known each other for years. Our kids play in the same little league. We're friends. I've actually been to Crown King with her and her family as well. I already had a relationship with her. She had a beginning of a relationship with Eric McIntosh with the Arizona Hispanic Chamber on Facebook. I don't know if they'd ever met in person, but I know they were friends on Facebook. So Rachel one day posts an event on Facebook, inviting anybody who was watching to attend. Eric sees the post. This was years ago when we could network in person. Eric shows up at the event. So I had a relationship with Rachel. Eric had a relationship with Rachel, and he sees the post. He shows up at the event, and now a relationship is born between Nate and Eric. And boy, am I grateful for that. And I thank Rachel for it often, and I know Eric does as well. Once Eric and I started getting to know each other, then we started becoming resources for one another. I think a goal for every single one of you that want to take your business to the next level, or your family, or your kids' PTA, or whatever you do for a living, or whatever you do this afternoon, if you want to take it to the next level, I think an easy way to do so is to become a resource. Become a resource for that relationship. Ask questions like, what can I do to help you? Or how are things going? Or what's working for you and what's not right now? This is assuming you've already got a relationship. Then you can start to ask people these questions. You know, what's your big goal for 2021? How can I help? And when they say, my big goal is X to happen, then it's your job to say, how can I be a resource to help this relationship get better by that person, you know, getting more or doing more? Remember that Zig Ziglar quote about the easiest way to help get what you want is to help others get what they want. Everything starts with a relationship. That's what leads to becoming resources for each other. Once we are resources for one another, that's where referrals come in my opinion. That's what my entire organization is all about. But there are far too many people that I come across, and I'm sure some of you can start to think of some names right now, of people who have asked you for referrals, or worse yet, in my opinion, expected referrals from you before they were ever a resource for you, let alone you even had a relationship. And how does that work for you? When somebody asks you for something and you don't even know who they are, like our natural human instinct is to kind of be cautious or to be skeptical. That's just normal. I think the same would happen with a 5-year-old kid. You know, if I'm asking for something from them and they don't know who I am and I don't know who they are and there's no form of a resource available, then what am I doing? And those don't tend to work out. So it starts with a relationship. That's what leads to a resource. That's where referrals come in. So once the chamber is able to meet in person again, or if any of you are doing any in-person networking now or in the future, before you ever ask for a referral, ask yourself, Is there an existing relationship in place? If I were to find this person crossing through the aisle at Costco and I'm pushing my cart and they're pushing theirs, would we know each other's names? If the answer is no, I would not ask for a referral. Even if you know each other's names, but you have no idea what one another do for a living, then the relationship isn't strong enough yet to ask for referrals. Yet I have been at so many networking events throughout my career where I shake hands with somebody, we exchange business cards, and immediately they start telling me and asking me for referrals or ways for them to make money. That is like upside down and inside out in my world. Relationships lead to resources, resources lead to referrals, and referrals lead to results. That's the fourth and final R, results. And there's millions of different results that could come out of a referral, a resource, or a relationship. And the beauty of these 4 R's is, even though they start in chronological order with a relationship down the line as I have them numbered, once you're creating results with someone else, this could apply to your employees, this could apply to your vendors, this could apply to your colleagues here at the chamber, this could very well apply to your relationship with the chamber. Once you are producing results for this chamber and this chamber is producing results for you, then it gets ridiculously easy to work the system backwards, to extend more referrals, to expand the ability to be resources, and to develop new relationships. So what I do in my life is I just work this up, down, inside and out, and everything seems to get bigger, better, stronger, and faster. It goes back to the house analogy. You got to lay the foundation first. That's the relationships and the people, and then start to put up the walls and the fancy decorations. So let me go back to that first definition for foundation. The basis or groundwork of anything. So if we're building businesses, whether you're selling pens or coffee mugs, or you're a mortgage lender, God bless you with how busy y'all have been this year, in the midst of everything. Or if you're an accountant or a home inspector or a bookkeeper, I think this all applies to service-related businesses, product-related businesses, charities, nonprofits, whether you're brand new at what you do for a living or you've been in your career for 25 years. I think this all applies and all has room to expand and increase and strengthen the groundwork, your foundation of what I think are the people we surround ourselves with. Here on this screen, you see 74 of my greatest friends, only because you can only fit 25 faces on a Zoom screen nowadays. This is my network. This is like my heart and soul. The people you see here on this screen are people that I have relationships with, that I've become a resource for, and they've offered to become resources for me. We pass tons of referrals to each other, and amazing results come out of it. But that doesn't mean I can hit the pause button, or I can stop developing more relationships, or connecting the relationships with 2 different people on this screen with my family who, my mom is a retired school teacher, never 35 years in kindergarten, bless her heart, never did business at all. Yet she is just as much a resource for the people on this screen who are all in different businesses and different walks of life as they are for her now, because of some simple introductions that I've made along the way. People are the foundation of everything we do. People are what lead to connections. Connections are what leads to everything in networking, in my opinion. Now, there is an asterisk here. If you think about the word networking, there's 4 little letters in the middle of the word networking. W-O-R-K. Some people think networking and attending a chamber function like this, or going to a happy hour, or joining your kid's PTA so that you can help give back to the school, but then you'll have a chance to make more connections. Some people look at that as work. I don't. And I want to challenge you all to think about your relationships, your network, your database, your friends, your family, your clients, your employees, your vendors, and what opportunity do you have to go out and make more connections? In my world, in the connection world, 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2. I don't have time to expand on that right now. Maybe that'll be Power of Networking 2.0 at a later session, but 1 + 1 when it comes to people does not always equal 2. I kind of touched on it when I mentioned the limit of 250 people per, because my connections that I'm willing to refer to Eric in the chamber and his connections that he in the chamber are willing to refer to me have exponential potential, exponential. But it starts with connections that are made amongst people. People. And here in the United States of America, the free country we're in, nobody's governing how many people we can know or however many we can meet. So why not take that as far as possible? Here's a few visuals I found online. that show how one connection can lead to an endless possibility. You know, we all heard the adage, there used to be real popular. People would say, thanks to 6 degrees of separation, any one of us could meet Kevin Bacon or the president or the Pope or anybody, or anybody you want. Not Michael Jackson anymore, but back in the day. So I believe that. I agree that that's true. And Kevin Bacon, there's like there's a documentary on it. I think you could still find it on YouTube, that said through 6 degrees of separation. So me connecting with one person who knows another, any one of us could meet or get a hold of Kevin Bacon if we wanted to, or Arnold Schwarzenegger, or Lady Gaga. From what I have found in my career, and I already told you earlier, I'm not an economist, I'm not an expert, and I haven't tracked this as well as I wish I would have over the years. But I personally think any one of us, any one of you can meet just about anybody you want with as few as 2 or 3 connections. It doesn't even take 6. I think if you dig deep enough into your network and assess your own current network well enough as you are aspiring to meet somebody new or land a new client, that with just 2 to 3 connections and a little bit of work, those are the 4 letters in the middle of the word network, that we can get in front of or a hold of anybody. And that's part of Harvey's story, by the way. If you do some homework on Harvey Mackay, I only touched on the surface of the story. How he got to know Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and the owners and decision makers of all those big credit card companies was simply asking for a connection, and then taking that connection to the next level, and then asking for another one. And he did that throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s with no internet, with no iPhone in his pocket or on his desk, like really with a rotary phone. I know some of you might not be old enough to know what that is, but I remember when my parents had a rotary phone on the wall that had this little circle thing on it that you had to spin to call grandma or the neighbor. Harvey built a company that sells $100 million worth of envelopes, and most of it he was able to do when it was hard to make connections. In my opinion, nowadays, it's gotten very efficient and very effective thanks to the internet, thanks to social media, thanks to iPhones in our pockets, to make connections and find as many as we could possibly want. So as I start to wrap up, and then I'm going to open it up for Q&A, I want to kind of leave you with this, going back to where I started with my favorite little goldfish. Regardless of the size of the bowl that you were swimming around in back in 2018 or 2019, when the economy was great and Arizona was growing and clients were showing up from everywhere, regardless of where that was or how that looked for you then, regardless of what 2020 did for you and your business or didn't do, if you lost clients, if you lost vendors, if you lost employees or family members, it's tragic. And I feel terrible about it. Like it kills me to know what's been happening around this country and around the world in the last 9 months. Yet I got to leave that kind of on the back burner, or on the side burner at least, to look forward. And I think right now, because of what 2020 threw all of our way, because of the excitement of people like you all, I didn't check lately. I mean, we've got almost 50 people on the line here today. If that doesn't prove that opportunity is out there and that we are in a niche of go-getters that have an opportunity to leave our competition and a bunch of other people behind, I don't know what does. I know firsthand there's 10,000 things any single one of you could have been doing today. Yet the fact that you got the invitation to this meeting tells me that somebody cares enough about you, either because you're in the chamber or you heard about it through the grapevine. The fact that you accepted the invitation, you put it on your calendar, and then actually showed up tells me you've got more opportunity ahead of you and in front of you than you could even possibly need. So why not capitalize on that? Why not expand your foundation, utilize those 4 R's, and let's all take a jump together into the bigger bowl so that we can have a very positive impact on each other, on our communities, on our employees, on everybody and everything I've talked about today. So even though I've told you, I don't think any of this is rocket science. I know it's not. If any of you have any questions about anything I've covered today or anything I haven't, I'm a firm believer that the only stupid questions in life are the ones that go unasked. So my email address is on the screen, as well as my cell number. You are more than welcome to text or call me any time of day. As a fellow chamber member, I want to do anything I can for you. I want to develop a relationship. I want to become a resource. If I can pass you referrals, I will. And if we can create some results for each other, why not do so? So I have not had a chance to look at the chat bar. I've seen a few posts in there popping up. But if you have any questions or comments, text or email me as soon as today. You can call me as well, but I'm in a lot of Zoom meetings right now. Like my phone, I've missed 9 calls just during this deal. So I've got some voicemails to return, but on text and email, I'm usually pretty easy to track down, even oftentimes late at night. I will get back to you. So as we open up the floor, I like to wrap up any presentation I do with a quote. I borrowed this one from Melody Beattie, and I think it's very appropriate as we are all launching into 2021 and whatever our new normals are. Hopefully, maybe one day it all gets back to the way it was. But if not, I'm embracing this new normal, and I want to challenge you to as well. And I believe that's what Melody's quote is intended to accomplish. She says, "The new year stands before us like a chapter in a book waiting to be written. Let's write it together. Let's maximize this year. Let's dream big, whether it's on stage in front of 4,000 people or swimming around a fishbowl as a goldfish with a shark fin on your back. Let's dream big. Let's never look back. Let's do it together, and let's have a lot of fun along the way." So that is all I've got today. Elizabeth and Eric, I will turn it back over to you. If we've got time for Q&A, I'm happy to stick around. Otherwise, you've all got my contact info. Lastly, I just want to thank you so much. This has been a great opportunity for me. And if you got one little nugget out of this, then hopefully it was well worth all of our time.
Thank you, Nate. This was really great. Loved it. Thank you so much. Well, we have some, about 5 minutes or so for Q&A. If you want to ask Nate directly, if you want to unmute yourself, or if you want to include it in the chat, you're more than welcome to. After this, right at 11, we'll go ahead and start our new member orientation. So if you'd like to stick around for that and learn more about the chamber and what resources and new opportunities we have for this new year, stick around. We have a great presentation by Eric and Angie from our team, so super exciting. Lots of positive feedback that I'm getting, Nate, so thank you so much again. Very inspirational from what I'm seeing.
I'm scrolling through it too. I don't see any direct questions, but thank you. If this was at all inspirational to you, then it made it worth it for me. People are what gets me out of bed every day, and I love small business. I support small business to a fault, and so I look forward to really nurturing this from here. There's got to be at least one question. The only stupid question.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Juan, go ahead.
I am Juan. I am a brand new member of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So right now I have this huge challenge. As you can see, all of us are in a remote space. What tips can you give me in order to start building relationships on an environment like this?
Great question, Juan. Thank you for asking. And most importantly, thank you for joining the chamber, and welcome to the best chamber in town and in the state, in my opinion. So I love to network. And when social media first came out, 15 years ago, I joined MySpace, and then I went over to Facebook. I've got a presence on the other one, Instagram, tells you how strong of a presence. And I use LinkedIn. And I've been a part of those platforms kind of for personal reasons and to keep in touch with family and stuff throughout 15 years. But in the last year, I have found more ways to leverage and utilize social media and social networking than ever before. And I think there's a lot of opportunity online right now, if for no other reason than because my competition and yours are networking online either way. So in my opinion, we should be too. But here's a quick flaw I see. I see a lot of people on Facebook specifically who never mention their businesses. They'll post what they had for dinner, they'll share pictures of their dogs, but they'll never post about their businesses. Part of your network, in my opinion, are your connections online. But if the people that you're networking with online only know what you had for dinner last night, but they don't know what you do for a living or what you're looking for, then in my opinion, you're leaving money on the table. So it's not my favorite thing to do. I do not love sitting in front of a computer. It hurts my back. I got a cushion behind me to prove it. And I just turned 40. I don't think I should have back problems yet, but I do. And this last year has kind of caught up to me in that regard because I've been networking online more than ever, if for no other reason than because a lot of other people are too. So I would start there, Juan, and you can utilize the chamber. I mean, there are so many amazing members in this chamber that I'm sure would welcome you with open arms with a simple LinkedIn friend request or a private message on any of the different platforms. So I would start there, and then I would also keep your eye out as soon as things start opening back up again. I know I'm out of time, but here's another nugget. I think when things start opening back up again, those of us who have been networking online, who get back out in public, we're going to be able to just skyrocket our exposure because a lot of people will be hesitant. Now, safety always comes first. Health and safety and family always come first for me. So I'm not recommending anybody do anything that wouldn't be safe. But the second that stuff is really happening online again, whether it's your kid's Little League game or a PTA meeting for your kid's school or a chamber meeting or a regional networking meeting, you know, even if it's out of your comfort zone, get out there and network because we're going to be the cream that floats to the top. That's my prediction. Time will tell. And so hopefully that kind of answers your question, Juan. Anybody else? All right, I think I'm out of time. So I'm going to turn it back to Elizabeth. Email me or text me. The only stupid questions are the one that go unasked. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Elizabeth. This has been a treat for me. If anybody got any value out of this and you want to share the recording later, or if any of you want any part of the PowerPoint I put together, just email me and I'll gladly share the whole thing with you. I'm an open book. I'm very transparent. I know that both Zig Ziglar and Harvey Mackay don't mind me talking about them or sharing their quotes, so you can use those as well. Thanks again. Gracias.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Nate. And we'll go ahead and share all this information along with Nate's information again in our post-event email. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you for the continued support, Nate, of the Chamber and our partnership with BNI Arizona. We truly appreciate it. So with that, I'd like to officially go ahead and conclude our workshop portion of the event and continue on with our new member orientation. So if, for those of you who'd like to stick around for that, just give us at least 2 minutes to just set up our presentation. And feel free to also include any questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring the chat for any questions or any comments as well. Give us one moment.